No niin, rakkaat kansalaiset ja algoritmien uhrit. Nyt laittakaa ne kissavideot hetkeksi jäähylle ja käyttäkää teidän aivokapasiteettia johonkin, joka ei viihdytä, mutta saattaa pelastaa ne jäljellä olevat järjen rippeet. Mun on hemmetin vaikeeta käsittää, miten nämä rokoteasiat ei ole jokaisen uutislehden etusivulla. Siis oikeasti, jos tää ei ole skandaali, niin mikä sitten on? Tää ei ehkä ole sitä mukavinta katsottavaa, mutta sitäkin tärkeämpää, varsinkin lasten terveyden ja tulevaisuuden kannalta. Niin, kiinnostaako? Juu. Jaa tää video nyt, ennen kuin algoritmi ehtii piilottaa sen johonkin digitaaliselle autiomaalle.
Niin.
Ja painakaa sitä tykkäysnappia. Tiedätte kyllä se pieni sydän tai peukku, jota kukaan ei muka koskaan löydä. Ja kirjoittakaa vaikka kommentti, vaikka voin luvata, että mikään some tai YouTube ei aio tätä levittää, koska tää ei liity mihinkään meemiin, salkkareihin tai vittu tanssivaan koiraa. Nyt siis kahvi käteen, rohkeasti folioattu päähän ja pistäkää video pyöriin.
I'm here. We have triplets, 2 boys and a girl, Richie, Robbie, and Claire. Every day in our life was a party. Every single day they were smiling and laughing and looking at each other, engaging in each other. On June 25th, 2007, we brought them in for the pneumococcal shot. My daughter still has the mark on her leg from the shot. She was the first one to get it, and she screamed and never really stopped screaming after that. But we continued. We didn't know. We did the boys as well. By noon, Claire shut completely off. It was as if she was blind and deaf, and all she did at that moment was stare at the ceiling fan. So that was at noon. We had the shot at 10 a.m. 2 o'clock, we watched Richie shut off. They lost all their reflexes. I'm an educational audiologist. I actually did the test for the stapedial reflex, which is a little muscle in the middle ear, just to see if a muscle they can't control was still working, and it didn't. The stapedial reflex dampens sound, so your ears don't hurt from a really loud sound, and both of them had no stapedial reflex. They stopped blinking, stopped yawning, stopped coughing, stopped sneezing. The worst is when we saw the final one shut down. We were told it was genetic, and then we were told by geneticists that there's no possible way 3 children would shut off on the same day. So we had severe autism spectrum disorder for all 3 kids entering kindergarten. We have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to recover them. The only person that we got back is Robbie, the one that was last to shut off. Richie can only say single, maybe 2 words together. Claire is still completely nonverbal, not potty trained, and Robbie is approaching grade level, but severe OCD.
Want me to tell you what a day in our life is? So you got, say, a 6 or 7 or 8-year-old child who's not potty trained. And at 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, they fill their diaper. Well, you assume that's pretty uncomfortable, so they take it off. Pretty soon it's all over them. It's all over the bed. In short order, it's all over me. It's all over her. I'm snapping at her. She's snapping at me. We're both snapping at the kid, who is the only innocent party in the whole scenario. And the one thing that's conspicuously absent from that scenario is anybody who told you that shot was safe. They were all asleep in their bed. They haven't got a problem in the world.
Miksi rokotevalmistajat eivät ole vastuussa? Rokotteet ovat ainoa tuote maailmassa, jonka valmistajaa ei voi haastaa oikeuteen, vaikka joku loukkaantuisi niiden vuoksi. Jos lentokoneen osa on viallinen, auton jarrut pettävät tai lääke aiheuttaa vammoja, valmistajaa voidaan syyttää. Rokotteiden kohdalla näin ei kuitenkaan ole. Tämä johtuu siitä, että vuonna 1986 Yhdysvalloissa säädettiin laki National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, joka vapautti rokotevalmistajat kaikesta vastuusta. Tämän jälkeen valtio perusti erillisen korvausjärjestelmän Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, josta rokotevahinkoja kärsineet voivat yrittää hakea korvausta. Ei suoraan yrityksiltä, vaan valtiolta.
But what's interesting about this industry is that the government has decided that this particular industry gets a free pass. That this particular industry doesn't have to be liable to anybody. And to our ranking member, I'm glad that you're interested in these things. I think that's fantastic. But President Biden or the auto pen extended immunity for these pharmaceutical companies for 5 years and then we out the door. How does that happen? On December 11th, 2024, with no public notice, snap of an auto pen, liability is extended through 2029. So you look at it, you go, well, how does all this happen?
I know this is the most toxic subject, autism and vaccines. But it's true. I mean, when I was growing up, I'm 70 years old now, I'd never even heard the word autism. And I know you can probably doctor statistics, you can kind of doctor charts. I'm actually pretty good at charts. But the charts you see, instance of autism seem to really escalate after 1986 with the explosion of vaccines. So again, does it prove causation? No, but man, it is a correlation that ought not to be ignored. And when you read that Substack by Toby Rogers, you realize this has not only been ignored, but design all these studies, spend billions of dollars to find the genetic component causing autism, don't find it, but you don't separate your study subjects between the vaxxed and the unvaxxed.
Ennen vuotta 1986 oli vain 3 rokotetta, DTP, MMR ja OPV. 70- ja 80-luvuilla Yhdysvalloissa oli useita tapauksia, joissa vanhan DTP-rokotteen eli kurkkumätä jäykkäkoodistus hinkuyskä väitettiin aiheuttaneen vakavia hermostollisia haittoja ja kuolemia. Vanhemmat nostivat satoja oikeusjuttuja rokotevalmistajia vastaan. Oikeusprosessit olivat pitkiä ja kalliita, ja korvausvaatimukset nousivat niin suuriksi, että useat yhtiöt vetäytyivät markkinoilta. 80-luvun puoliväliin mennessä hinkuyskärokotetta valmisti aiemmin 6 yritystä. Lopulta vain 1 jäi jäljelle. Tuhkarokkorokotteita teki myös 6 valmistajaa. Niistäkin vain 1 jatkoi. Poliorokotetta valmisti 3 yritystä. Lopulta vain 1 jäi jäljelle. Useat valmistajat eivät siis kirjaimellisesti menneet virallisesti konkurssiin, mutta lopettivat rokotetuotannon, koska tuotevastuu oli liian suuri riski. Haittavaikutusten vuoksi monet yhtiöt joutuivat maksamaan niin suuria korvauksia, että lopettivat rokotteiden valmistuksen. Jotta rokotteet eivät loppuisi markkinoilta, kongressi päätti vapauttaa yritykset vastuusta. Toisin sanoen, pelastaa ne taloudellisesti. Tämän seurauksena rokoteohjelmat laajenivat nopeasti, koska yrityksillä ei ollut enää taloudellista riskiä. Tämä pelasti rokotealan taloudellisesti ja mahdollisti sen, että ohjelmia voitiin laajentaa ilman pelkoa uusista oikeusjutuista. Rokote on siis tuote, joka aiheuttaa niin paljon haittaa, että se ei voisi selviytyä markkinoilla ilman, että valtio estää ihmisiä haastamasta sen valmistajaa oikeuteen niistä haitoista, joita se itse aiheuttaa.
This one story of Richie, Robbie, and Claire puts an end to any discussion that autism is only caused by genetics. There is no genetic explanation that would turn 3 brothers and sisters off on the exact same day.
What you should do when there are widespread complaints that a product is causing a given harm is you should study it.
Vaccines should be tested like other medicines. They should be safety tested. And unfortunately, vaccines are not safety tested. Of the 72 vaccine doses now mandated, essentially mandated, they're recommended, but they're really mandated. American children, none of them, not one, has ever been subject to a pre-licensing placebo-controlled trial.
Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr. has been torn apart by mainstream media for saying that there's no placebo trials being done for vaccines. But he's right. It's exactly what we found in our lawsuits against the government. Not a single childhood vaccine is going through a double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled trial prior to licensure. That's the gold standard of safety testing for all pharmaceutical products, but it's being skipped for vaccines.
Whether or not any of the vaccines on the childhood schedule have ever been tested against a true placebo.
In terms of FDA trials, in the Center for Biologics Evaluations and Research under the FDA, there has never been a clinical trial on a childhood vaccine that has had a true saline placebo. The only saline placebos that were done were on the COVID-19 shots, and those placebos basically were essentially null and void because they started to offer the vaccine itself to the control group within 10 to 14 weeks of the start of the trial. So no, there are no placebo-controlled trials that use a true saline placebo.
80-luvun alussa CDC:n eli Yhdysvaltain tautikeskuksen rokoteohjelmaa noudattava lapsi sai 3 pistosta 3 ensimmäisen elinvuoden aikana. Nykyään samaa aikataulua seuraava lapsi saa 29 pistosta ensimmäisen elinvuodensa aikana. 3-29. Suomessa lapset saavat nykyään 9 rokotetta ensimmäisen 12 kuukauden aikana. Mukaan lukien vitosrokotteita 2, joissa on 5 eri rokotetta samassa rokotteessa. 80-luvulla Suomessa annettiin arviolta saman verran rokotteita ensimmäisen 18 vuoden aikana. Eli tahti ja määrät ovat kiihtyneet rajusti. Ja jokainen näistä rokotteista, yhtä lukuun ottamatta, on kehitetty yrityksen toimesta, joka tiesi, ettei se koskaan joutuisi vastuuseen niistä vammoista, joita tuote saattaisi aiheuttaa.
On behalf of people who were injured or died from vaccines, what follows is a small sample of the 2,400 video testimonies obtained during those tours.
She was born completely healthy, normal, beautiful. Light of my life, light of my family's life. She did receive hepatitis B vaccine and became severely jaundiced, just severe. It just kept telling me everything was normal, and I knew something was really, really wrong. You don't believe your child is gone until they come tell you for real that she's gone. I was told SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. And in the support group meetings I went to, every parent, every single parent there would bring up vaccines and ask. Every story had vaccines involved. A lot of a child died the next day. That vaccines, high-pitched scream, projectile vomit, whatever, until they died within less than 24 hours. So we were all asking our SIDS support group leader, is there a connection? It just seems like all of us feel like vaccines are involved.
He was very athletic, he was very smart, and just a very caring and loving child. I did exactly what the doctor said. I took Cameron, who was sick, and I gave him the flu shot. He had a fever. I couldn't break the fever. By Monday morning, he was having seizures. This is Cameron at 6, the basketball game one day before he got sick having the seizures. This is Cameron in ICU the next day. Now he has cognitive delays. He no longer speaks. The doctor finally said, we don't know what happened, but I would recommend that you never give him a flu shot.
So at 2, 4 and 6 months, Billy had his normal baby vaccines. He was due his MMR vaccination at 12 months. The day Billy got the MMR was a living nightmare. His eyes were doing this and he was shaking like this. We get to hospital, we rush him in, doctors are coming in and looking at him, and that's when they said, he's had a reaction. Without a doubt, what's happened to Billy has changed his life. What I have on my hands now is a 19-year-old man. He's 6'2". He is volatile. On good days, Billy is brilliant. He's an angel. On bad days, the slightest thing can trigger him and he's scary.
Push the stress level, Philly. It's
No, don't touch Ellie.
Otto was born perfectly healthy. He was walking, running, climbing, and hitting every milestone. After his 17-month round of vaccinations, he had an autoimmune reaction. It was vaccine-induced transverse myelitis. One night, he went from being able to walk to no longer being able to stand. He was paralyzed from the waist down. I had no idea my son could be paralyzed from being vaccinated. Transverse myelitis is in the vaccine insert as a potential adverse reaction, but his doctor never showed me that, and he never informed me of any serious side effects.
He was your typical boy. When he was born, he was happy, healthy, everything was flowing perfect. He was walking, talking, all of his well checkups, everything was on time, everything was great. Then he received his chickenpox vaccine and things really started to deteriorate from there. He was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré and told that it'll be fine, it'll pass in a few days. My happy, healthy baby boy, in a matter of 4 days, went into a near vegetative state of being. The way he described it was that something in the chickenpox vaccine itself counteracted something in his genetics and caused his immune system to turn on itself.
He loved baseball, snow skiing, indoor skydiving. Motocross was his passion. Anything that has to do with an adrenaline rush. The doctor says, hey, he's the age that you should get the HPV vaccine. I said, okay. On day one, his full neck and his whole right arm was completely paralyzed. My husband took him in to Instacare, holding his head for him because he couldn't get out of bed.
It does suck, like, not being able to play sports anymore. Because I did do a lot of sports.
They say 1 in a million, but I know too many people that have been vaccine injured, and I don't know more than 1 million people.
He was saying mama, and I was so proud that this child said mama first and not dada. We went in, as most parents do, regular vaccinations. When I went to get closer to him to wake him up, I saw that his eyes were partially propped open and he was dead. I knew at that moment what took his life. There was no question what had happened. We went back to the pediatrician. All of her questions were, was your son vaccinated? When did he start having problems? When did the seizures start? It was all around the vaccines. She said, if it's any vaccine that caused these seizures, it's the DTaP. And I said, can you put that in writing? And she said, no.
The Vaxxed and CHD bus tours were not designed as research projects, but the evidence obtained should not be ignored. Every single vaccination on the children's vaccine schedule had reports of serious and permanent injuries, many of them including death.
Miksi turvallisuutta ei ohjaa moraali, vaan taloudellinen etu? Yritys, jonka tarkoitus on tuottaa voittoa, ei lähtökohtaisesti tutki tuotteensa turvallisuutta altruismista tai moraalisista syistä. Sen ensisijainen motiivi on taloudellinen itsekkyys. Jos tuote osoittautuu vaaralliseksi ja aiheuttaa vahinkoja, yritys menettää rahansa korvauksiin ja maineeseen. Siksi monilla toimialoilla, kuten lääketeollisuudessa, ilmailussa ja autoteollisuudessa, turvallisuutta varmistetaan pitkien, kalliiden ja tarkkojen tutkimusten avulla. Ne suojelevat yritystä taloudellisilta tappioilta. Mutta rokotteiden kohdalla logiikka muuttuu.
In case you forgot how a double-blind, placebo-based trial worked as we discussed it back in high school science class, let me remind you. We break up a group of kids into 2 groups. One group is going to get the vaccine. The other group is going to get a placebo, which is a product that has no effect on the human body. When it comes to an injectable like vaccines, that is a saline injection. then it's called double-blinded because both the scientists and the patients are blinded from knowing which one they got. Did they get the vaccine or did they get the placebo? This is so that the scientists will not manipulate the study in favor of the pharmaceutical industry that will stand to make a lot of money if this vaccine proves to be safe. Then we track these two groups for 2 to 5 years, sometimes as long as 10 years for a lot of drugs. And at the end of that study, we unblind both the patient and the scientist. So we look at both groups, the vaccinated and the placebo group, and we compare their health outcomes. Who had more cancer? Who had more diabetes or ADD, ADHD or autism or Tourette's or lupus or multiple sclerosis, all of these things that are currently skyrocketing in the United States of America. And if, when you compare them, they both turn out the same, there's the same amount of issues in the vaccinated group as is in the placebo group, then you know it's safe. You've established what we call a safety baseline. But if the vaccinated group has more issues than the placebo group, then we know it's not safe and it shouldn't be put on the market. Only one problem. Not a single vaccine on the childhood schedule has ever been through a double-blind placebo-based trial. Therefore, they cannot say the vaccines are safe based on science.
Lähes kaikki lasten rokotteet ovat saaneet myyntiluvan ilman pitkäaikaisia lumekontrolloituja tutkimuksia. Usein seuranta on kestänyt vain päiviä tai viikkoja, ja tutkimusjoukot ovat olleet pieniä. Esimerkiksi Yhdysvaltain lääkeviraston omien asiakirjojen mukaan yksi hepatiitti B-rokote, Ramvax HB, sai myyntiluvan kliinisen tutkimuksen perusteella, jossa mukana oli vain 147 lasta, turvallisuutta seurattiin vain 5 päivän ajan, eikä tutkimuksessa ollut lumekontrolliryhmää, eli vertailuryhmää, joka ei saanut rokotetta. Tämä tarkoittaa, että tutkimuksesta ei voinut luotettavasti päätellä, oliko rokotteella haittavaikutuksia, jotka ilmenevät vasta päivien tai viikkojen kuluttua. Tällainen tutkimus on riittämätön arvioimaan todellista turvallisuutta, etenkin kun kyseessä on rokote, jota annetaan vasta syntyneille.
Previous hearings and events, talking to Aaron Siri, he really does lay out a pretty shocking, a bunch of facts in terms of the very small period of some of these trials and some of these vaccines. Can you comment on that?
Yes, if you look at the clinical trials that were done, say, for example, by the hepatitis B vaccine, some of the clinical trials looked at adverse events after the vaccine in a duration of 48 hours. Some of the vaccines regarding Haemophilus influenza B and the DTaP vaccine, the window for adverse events was 4 days or 5 days. And so we know that many serious adverse events obviously happen after that window. So these serious adverse events within 48 hours, 4 days, or 5 days, they would not be recorded and they would be completely opaque from the public and from the FDA.
Miksi? Koska lääkeyhtiöillä ei ole taloudellista syytä tehdä enempää, jos vähäisemmillä tutkimuksilla saadaan FDA:n lupa. Kun yritystä ei voi haastaa oikeuteen rokotevahingoista, riski katoaa. Ja samalla katoaa kannustin varmistaa turvallisuus. Jos yritys olisi itse vastuussa vahingoista, se tekisi laajoja tutkimuksia ennen kuin rokote päästetään miljoonien lasten käsivarsiin. Mutta kun vastuu puuttuu, päätökset tehdään tuloslaskelman, ei etiikan perusteella.
Do you agree with the CDC's recommendation that babies receive a hepatitis B on the first day of life?
Yes.
You stated that hepatitis B doesn't cause encephalitis, right?
That's in my opinion, yes.
But the IOM, after doing its review, determined it couldn't find science to support a causal determination one way or another. Correct?
Yes. But that means that they don't have evidence for the supposition.
That it either causes or doesn't cause.
Right.
They don't know.
They don't know because there aren't enough data. In the absence of data, my conclusion is that there's no proof that causation exists.
So if there's no data to show that it causes or it doesn't cause,
yes,
your supposition, is that I understand correctly?
Yes.
Is that it doesn't cause it?
That there's no proof that it does.
Okay, that's different than saying it doesn't cause it, correct?
Correct.
Turvallisuutta valvovat viranomaiset ovat periaatteessa seuraava suoja kuluttajan kannalta. Ongelmana on, että Yhdysvalloissa ja monessa muussa maassa samat virastot, jotka edistävät rokotusohjelmia, ovat myös vastuussa niiden turvallisuudesta. Tämä on selvä eturistiriita. Et voi pyytää yhtä ja samaa virastoa sekä markkinoimaan tuotetta että rankaisemaan sen valmistajaa mahdollisista turvallisuusongelmista. Siksi muilla aloilla, kuten ilmailussa tai ydinenergiassa, nämä roolit on erotettu eri virastoihin. Rokotteiden kohdalla näin ei kuitenkaan ole. Yhdysvaltain terveysministeriö vastaa sekä rokotteiden turvallisuudesta että niiden edistämisestä. Sen alaisuudessa toimivat CDC, FDA ja NIH, eli samat tahot, jotka sekä hyväksyvät että suosittelevat rokotteita. Rokotevahingoista kärsivä ei voi enää haastaa valmistajaa oikeuteen, vaan hänen on haettava korvausta samaa valtion virastoa vastaan, joka vakuuttaa, että rokote on turvallinen. Toisin sanoen, virasto joutuu puolustamaan itseään väitteitä vastaan, että sen hyväksymä tuote aiheuttaa vammoja. Tämä tekee tieteellisesti rehellisen tutkimuksen lähes mahdottomaksi. Jos virasto tekisi tutkimuksen, joka osoittaisi rokotteen aiheuttavan haittoja, tulos voitaisiin käyttää sitä itseään vastaan korvausvaatimuksissa. Lopputuloksena näin syntyy järjestelmä, jossa yrityksillä ei ole vastuuta ja valtion viranomaisilla on intressi olla löytämättä ongelmia. Yhdessä nämä luovat tilanteen, jossa taloudellinen kannustin, ei turvallisuus tai tiede, määrittää, miten tuotteita tutkitaan ja markkinoidaan.
In your testimony, you said when you went to your doctor, talking about how your child, how Bill was having seizures. Well, that's perfectly normal. That's common. I mean, I find that jaw-dropping.
Yeah, and it's the same story over and over again. And in fact, it is common.
That's what I want to ask you.
Because it's on the insert of the MMR vaccination, on the insert in bold letters, the seizure. So it is common. The pharmaceutical company have told us in the insert. It's the pediatricians that don't tell us what could happen to our children. They're the front line for us with our babies, and we trust them.
By the way, what is the truth? Because I hear back and forth. I mean, do pediatricians get incentivized with percent vaccination of their...
Yes, Dr. Paul Thomas has done a very good video on that, and many other pediatricians have followed. Maybe Dr. Hooker could answer better on that.
Yeah, they're typically incentivized directly by HMOs. HMOs buy and sell vaccines, so vaccines are big businesses for HMOs. But the incentivization is usually anywhere from $200 to $600 per fully vaccinated patient, as long as their vaccines, a certain percentage of their practice is fully vaccinated. So some pediatricians can make upwards to $1 million or more a year just in those incentives.
I've also heard stories of pediatricians basically firing patients because they won't get vaccinated, because
that is correct.
We hear that story over and over again. And also the lies that the pediatrician tell us that our baby will die if we don't get vitamin K at birth. The baby will bleed out before it gets to the car. And these stories, if you don't get the HPV vaccine, then you will die of cancer. These parents have told us these stories, and they're the same over and over again. How can they get away with lying like that to us, the parents?
When you go to make a decision for your child, is a doctor actually being a fair arbiter? Or are they thinking, hey, there's a pharmaceutical rep that's going to pay me based on how many vaccines I prescribed, how many prescriptions I fill? That's a whole different world.
Entäpä Suomessa? Suomessa järjestelmä on vähän erilainen, mutta perusidea on sama. Jos rokote aiheuttaa haitan, et voi haastaa rokotevalmistajaa suoraan oikeuteen. Korvaukset tulevat lääkevahinkovakuutuspoolin kautta. eli yhteisestä vakuutuksesta, jota rahoittavat lääkeyhtiöt ja jota käytännössä hallinnoidaan yhdessä viranomaisten kanssa. Mutta jos korvauksia maksetaan paljon, ei se iske yksittäiseen yhtiöön, vaan järjestelmään kokonaisuutena. Eli vaikka Suomessa korvauksia voi saada helpommin kuin Yhdysvalloissa, vastuu yksittäiseltä yritykseltä puuttuu silti. Yrityksellä ei ole suoraa rahallista pelkoa, jos sen rokotteella olisi ongelmia. Järjestelmä maksaa.
Ms. Tarsal, as I said in the opening statement, Dr. Joel Walscock talked about just being abandoned. Can you talk about your experience following your daughter's tragedy?
There was total disbelief in what happened. I was home alone when a police officer came to my house to tell me they found my daughter dead in her bed and they didn't know what happened. It took quite a while for us to begin to put the pieces together. And I understand from the other panelists here that initially one would never suspect it was vaccine related because we've been told they're safe and effective and prevent whatever it is they're designed to prevent. When that first became evident that other people, at the time, Gardasil had only been licensed 2 years before. So at the time, there was little literature known online, but I began to connect with other parents and moms and researchers online. It's like, there's a whole lot that we're not being told. And that's devastating to not be informed, to make, and as I learned more about it, that we were never told. My daughter never needed that vaccine. She was never at risk of getting cervical cancer. The risk is very low. The HPV is clear on their own. And I'm not the only mom who's gone through that experience, and now they're also pushing it for boys, when they haven't even been able to show that the vaccine causes any cancer that's HPV related. And there's a whole reason for that, because these cancers are very slow growing, and the onset is after age 50. So they're giving it to young adolescents. It was like, I just was blown away. I could not imagine that they would have approved these vaccines and they would continue to do so. To a discussion about VAERS and to what you asked me about what I learned after my daughter died, I was stunned that the FDA did not follow up, that there's no real investigation. I was stunned that on the CDC website, they said deaths have been investigated and have been found to due to other causes. When I knew not only my daughter's death, but other deaths had not been investigated or found to be due to other causes. And through a FOIA request, I got all reports about VAERS reports on my daughter's case. Merck, the manufacturer, had filed a report claiming my daughter died from a viral infection. There was no evidence that she had died of a viral infection. I spent a year communicating with Merck. Why did they say that? What's their evidence? They said my doctors told them that. So I went to my doctors. I got letters from the doctors stating that no one, neither they nor anyone on their staff, had ever reported that my daughter died from a viral infection. Yet Merck has that not only in the VAERS report, but on a system called the Worldwide Adverse Event System that is available to doctors. And I guess doctors look at that to get an update on vaccine injuries or concerns. And once it's dead there, they never remove it, even if it's inaccurate information. So I think that's another area in terms of what information is available from authorities, what information is available to doctors from the manufacturer, and what information we get from informed consent. And to have Merck lie on their report. The other thing that's come up here in these conversations is people talking about the VAERS reports. That's the first line to determine if there are red flags for injuries after vaccination. And that is a very, very flawed system. I had no idea at the time. But I have learned that, as I said in my talk, that less than 1% get reported. One of the doctors on the panel said he never learned about it in medical school, and they still don't. And how can this be? This is crazy. This is the front line to determine if there are vaccine injuries. And so I've been, I feel my daughter is here with me. I'm her voice. I am trying to make her death matter. I know of all these other moms who have lost their kids through various vaccines, but HPV vaccine in particular. There were 6 other mothers I was connected with back in 2008 who had lost their daughters. Thank God I had support and the ability to find out more. And that's why I'm here. I want to share it with other people. We all want the best for our kids.
The VAERS system, what was it? It was a Harvard study conducted, correct? That showed
Yes.
what, 1%? I guess they estimated about 1% of all vaccine injuries are actually reported to VAERS?
That is correct, about 1%. This was you're referring to a study by Ross Lazarus et al. From the Harvard Pilgrim Medical Group. It was a study actually sponsored by the CDC themselves, and they estimated that about 1% or less of all vaccine adverse events were being captured by VAERS.
So what do you estimate the rate of vaccine injury? You've done a lot of studying on this?
Absolutely, and I think going back to that same publication, again, it's CDC dollars, and they found that in their study group, they looked at the Harvard Pilgrim HMO over 3 years, and they looked at every individual needle stick, and they found that there were, for every 39 needle sticks, there was one serious adverse event. So that's 1 in 39. It's not 1 in a million. It's not 1 in 2 million. It's 1 in 39 needle sticks. Now, when you factor in the fact that over that 3-year period, many people got more than one vaccine, then the serious adverse event rate per person was 1 in 10.
Miksi sidosyhteydet virastoissa ovat ongelma? Suomessa rokotteiden turvallisuutta valvovat viranomaiset, kuten THL ja Fimea, toimivat yhteistyössä niiden kanssa, jotka myös edistävät rokotusohjelmia. Tämä on ongelmallista, koska sama taho, joka suosittelee rokotetta, valvoo sen turvallisuutta. Se on vähän kuin jos urheilujoukkueen valmentaja ja tuomari olisivat sama ihminen. Miten voit luottaa, että peli on reilua? Jos he myöntäisivät, että jokin rokote aiheuttaa haittoja, ne syyttäisivät samalla itseään huonosta valvonnasta. Siksi viranomaisilla on paine olla löytämättä ongelmia, koska jokainen virallinen myöntö haittavaikutuksista kääntyisi heitä itseään vastaan.
Go to Ms. Cordingley.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate the opportunity to be here to speak for all of those that didn't have the chance to. I feel that we have a lot of growth. We are all here as parents. We want what is best for our children. We want to keep them safe. We want to keep them healthy. I think we can all agree on that is our utmost priority here. The problem that lies is we have too many conflicts of interests. We have the pharmaceutical companies in the medical schools. Their roots are dug deep. And when you have the pharmaceutical companies that are selling the drugs also teaching the doctors what needs to happen, you're having a broken system. You're having these doctors that are coming out of medical school, just like Dr. Sullivan said, where all you learned about vaccines was to memorize the schedule. You didn't learn about how to recognize the illnesses, and that's part of the problem. If we have something that is trying to prevent these illnesses, there's no 100%. These illnesses are still going to be around. Why are these doctors not being taught how to recognize these illnesses and a proper treatment protocol to help prevent any kind of adverse effects from those illnesses? So we may be focusing on vaccinations, but we still have to focus on the diseases and the illnesses at hand because they will never be completely eliminated. And without that complete elimination, we still have to have the education there. And if we don't have that proper education and proper treatment plan in place, we're going to continue having both sides of where we have children that have passed from the illness. And then if we do not have the proper procedures put in place and we do not have that true saline placebo studies done to show the true safety and effectiveness, then we're going to continue to see our children be damaged and killed by the very thing that we are trying to protect our children in this world for. So thank you for allowing me to come here and to speak for all of the other parents that were not able to be here to speak from decades ago even. They matter, their children's voices matter, and I'm here to make sure that we make changes happen. Thank you.
I get to decide what's good for me and my family with proper information. And if I'm given improper information, just like in any other industry, there's got to be accountability. And these industries that produce bad behavior, the executives, the people who charge those people to do these bad things have got to feel personal repercussions. Because if that's not the guidepost in which we do this, then all we're going to do is have wasted these great people's time. So I'll end where I started. I'm hoping that, Chairman, what comes out of this is actual progress. Because when I hear your stories, it breaks my heart, and I know it's a death sentence a life sentence for all of you. This isn't something where tomorrow you snap your fingers and your emotions leave you. It's going to be with you, and I can see the pain in each and every one of you. And I'm hoping my colleagues see that pain and that we actually move the ball forward to get something done. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.